In February 2022, 41-year-old Felix De Jesus was recovering from hip replacement surgery. He had been staying with his mother in the town of Halloden, near Paterson, in northern New Jersey. On the night of February 2nd, Felix, who had been drinking at home, decided to visit a deli in Paterson to grab some snacks. However, he never returned home that night. Concerned, his family reported him missing the following day, and the Halloden Police Department released a photo of Felix, seeking information from the public. What the police didn't immediately share with Felix's family was that two officers might have been the last people to see him before he disappeared. The owner of the deli where Felix had stopped told them that the Paterson police had arrested him on February 2nd. Felix's mother recollected that the family was distributing flyers in nearby establishments when the proprietor of the deli informed them of Felix's arrest by the Paterson Police Department the previous evening. There is some uncertainty about whether the Halloden police were immediately aware that Felix had been in Paterson police custody. According to media reports, the authorities asserted that Felix's encounter with the police was not disclosed early in the investigation, owing to the confidentiality of internal police investigations. Felix's family has expressed frustration, stating that it took more than a week to discover that he had been in police custody. In the meantime, they were desperately calling local hospitals, morgues, and other places, searching for any trace of their loved one. The Paterson Police Department later clarified that they had been called to the deli on the evening of February 2nd because Felix, who was intoxicated, was allegedly harassing a female customer. Upon arriving at the scene, the officers took him into custody. Instead of transporting Felix to the police station, a warming center, or even a hospital for his injured hand, they decided to drop him off at a nearby park, known as a local hangout spot. Police records and eyewitnesses confirmed that Felix was indeed dropped off at this park, located along the Passaic River. A group of people who were in the area at the time reported seeing Felix, but when they returned from a liquor store run, he had vanished. He has not been seen since. Felix's family has consistently pushed for more transparency and accountability from the police department, questioning why Felix was taken to the park instead of a safer location. They hoped that the release of police records or body camera footage would shed light on the events leading up to his disappearance. After 4 months of relentless advocacy, the Paterson Police Department finally released a brief, 4-minute segment of body camera footage from the arresting officers. The video showed the officers arriving at the scene, quickly handcuffing Felix and pushing him to the snowy, wet ground. Felix, who was wearing only a white t-shirt and jacket, is heard complaining in Spanish that his hand was broken. The woman whom Felix had allegedly harassed is also heard on the recording, stating that she did not want to press charges. Despite this, the officers placed Felix in their patrol car. However, instead of taking Felix to the police station or seeking medical attention for his injured hand, the officers drove him to the park. Notably, the video footage does not capture this drive, as both body camera recordings abruptly end after the 4-minute mark, the last image showing Felix in the back seat of the police vehicle. The De Jesus family has felt that they've had to fight for every piece of information regarding Felix's case. According to NorthJersey.com, several of his family members have become regular attendees at Paterson City Council meetings, often using the platform to criticize how local officials have handled the investigation. Months after Felix's disappearance, in October 2022, the officers involved were suspended for 90 days without pay for violating protocols, including those related to body cameras and the proper transportation of citizens. However, both officers have since returned to duty. The investigation has failed to provide answers about what happened to Felix after he was dropped off at the park, and no new information has emerged. In February 2023, his family marked the first anniversary of his disappearance. There is currently a $15,000 reward for anyone who can provide information that leads to Felix De Jesus' location. Anyone with information is urged to contact Captain George Guzman Jr., Detective Sergeant Timothy Lindbergh, or Detective Christian Clavo of the Haledon Police Department at 973-790-6963, or the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office tip line at 1-877-370-PCPO-7276. The disappearance of 22-year-old Brianna Murat from New Zealand remains a baffling mystery. Brianna's mother, Jasmine Gray, shared that investigators have warned her that it's unlikely her daughter will return home alive. However, they believe that two men who were last seen with Brianna might hold critical information regarding her whereabouts. The timeline of Brianna's last known activities begins on August 26, 2022, when she was picked up by a male friend. The two traveled to the Palmerston North area, where they spent the night. The following morning, Brianna was seen at a nearby liquor store around 11:15 a.m., but what she did for the rest of the day remains unknown. Later that evening, Brianna asked her friend to drive her home, and he agreed. However, the journey wasn't straightforward. They made several stops along the way, first picking up another friend before heading to Kimberley Reserve, near Leven. After spending some time there, they drove to Otaki, where Brianna's friend used her debit card to withdraw cash. They then continued to Hyde Park, where they picked up yet another friend at the corner of State Highway 1 and Te Horo Beach Road. Up until this point, Brianna's movements are well documented and confirmed. But what happened next is where the story takes a troubling turn. For reasons that remain unclear, Brianna suddenly ran down the beach and vanished into the night. She hasn't been seen or heard from since. As soon as Brianna was reported missing, the police launched an investigation. They checked her bank accounts and phone records, but found no activity since the night she disappeared. Her phone was turned off, and her family has not received any communication from her. Brianna's social media accounts have also been silent, which is highly unusual for her. Her family insists that it is completely out of character for her to go this long without contacting them, leading them to fear the worst. Investigators interviewed the individuals who were with Brianna that night, but instead of providing clarity, these interviews only deepened the mystery. The police have urged anyone with information to come forward, but so far, no new leads have emerged, and Brianna's whereabouts remain unknown. On August 28th, Brianna's handbag was discovered on the beach access road, but it contained nothing that could further the investigation. There is, however, a significant point of interest: a purple suitcase. Investigators believe this suitcase, which is thought to belong to one of the men with Brianna that night, might hold vital clues. Although the man claimed to have disclosed the contents of the suitcase, the police needed to locate it to verify his story. According to reports, a member of the public found both the purple suitcase and Brianna's handbag and even took a photo of them. However, by the time the authorities were alerted, the suitcase had been removed and its current whereabouts were unknown. When the police reviewed CCTV footage from the liquor store, they confirmed that Brianna had indeed been there. They released a still image from the footage, hoping it might jog the memory of anyone who saw her that day. Months later, Brianna's mother, Jasmine, posted on Facebook about a conversation she had with the man who found the suitcase. He told her that one of the men who had been with Brianna on the beach called him, asking him to retrieve some of his belongings. When the man arrived at the beach, he found the purple suitcase with Brianna's handbag on top. Both items were wet, and as he searched the area, he also found a woman's black shirt. He called the man to report what he had found, and the man asked him to look for his pants as well. The man searched, but didn't find anything else, so he opened the suitcase slightly. Inside, he saw a pair of gray tracksuit pants and a white shirt, but not the pants the man was asking about. The man then instructed him to leave the area immediately. The suitcase was later picked up by this man, but its current location remains unknown. 5 weeks after Brianna's disappearance, her phone was inexplicably found on the beach. When investigators received it, they were able to charge the battery and turn it on, leading Jasmine to believe that the phone hadn't been on the beach for long and might have been placed there after Brianna went missing. With no further leads, investigators issued a public appeal, asking anyone who saw a silver Peugeot in the areas of Otaki Main Road, Kimberly Reserve, T. Horo Beach Road, Hyde Park, Mary Crest School, or Pika Pika to come forward. They believe the purple suitcase was associated with this vehicle. They also asked for information regarding a green Honda spotted on the morning of August 29th, although they did not disclose how this vehicle might be connected to Brianna's case. As the investigation continues, police have not released additional details to the public. However, they urge anyone with information about Brianna's whereabouts or her actions after running down the beach to contact Crime Stoppers at 800-555-1212 or use reference code E105 when reporting tips. A $110,000 reward has been offered for any information leading to Brianna's location, but for now, her disappearance remains a mystery. The disappearance of 28-year-old Lisa Govan remains one of the most perplexing, unsolved cases in Western Australia. Originally from Lancaster, England, Lisa moved to Perth, Australia, with her family. It was there that she met Tim, who would later become her partner. The couple eventually decided to relocate to Kalgoorlie, a town known for its rough, mining-centric lifestyle. Though it was a significant change from her previous life, Lisa seemed to enjoy her new surroundings. Despite the distance from her family, she kept in close contact, regularly calling her parents and texting her sister, Jeanette. By October 1999, Lisa had begun to adjust to life in Kalgoorlie and had made friends with some of her colleagues. On October 7th of that year, Lisa and a few of her friends planned a night out. Before heading to meet them, Lisa dropped him off at work, as it had started raining. She then drove to the Exchange Hotel, where she met up with one of her co-workers. Together, they went to a nightclub called Safari on Hannah Street, where they enjoyed a few drinks. At around 4:45 a.m., Lisa left the club with a co-worker, known only as the Bald Man. The two hailed a taxi, but after a short drive, Lisa asked the driver to return to the club. She explained that she had seen one of her friends outside and wanted to talk to her. The taxi driver complied, dropping Lisa off, and the man continued home alone. He later told investigators that Lisa had planned to come to his house later that morning but never showed up. He tried calling her several times but received no answer and never saw her again. The police questioned the man multiple times, but he was not considered a suspect in her disappearance. It later emerged that Lisa had intentionally turned off her phone after dropping Tim off and heading to the hotel. Tim had been repeatedly calling her, upset that she was out with friends while he was at work. At one point, they argued, and Lisa decided to turn off her phone to avoid further conflict. The following morning, at around 7:30 a.m., Lisa was reportedly seen outside a business called Bunnings on Boulder Road. She was then spotted crossing the street to the Foundry Hotel liquor store. When witnesses were interviewed, They revealed that Lisa had also been seen playing pool at a biker gang clubhouse around 7:45 a.m. She was last seen entering the clubhouse, but it remains unclear when she left or if she was with anyone at the time. Investigators believe she left the club unharmed, but have no leads on where she went afterward. CCTV footage from the clubhouse, later released by the authorities, shows Lisa drinking and talking to several people inside. At one point, she is seen speaking with a man with a ponytail and dark jacket, followed by conversations with two men in light-colored clothing. She then talks to a man in a white shirt with a bald patch before they walk down the stairs together. Another camera captured them outside, where they joined a group of people in the parking lot. Lisa is seen talking to multiple individuals, but nothing in the footage suggests she is in any danger. Unfortunately, the footage provided no clues about her whereabouts. Lisa's sister, Jeanette, was baffled as to why Lisa was at the biker gang's clubhouse. Although Tim owned a motorcycle, he had no ties to the gang, and Lisa had never mentioned knowing anyone connected to it. However, another of Lisa's sisters, Sharon, told police that Lisa had visited the gang's premises before and had even discussed it with her. Sharon had expressed concern about Lisa's safety, but Lisa dismissed her worries, saying she considered many of the people at the club her friends. Investigators later informed the family that entry to the clubhouse was by invitation only, leading them to believe that Lisa indeed had friends among the gang members. When Tim returned home from work the next morning, he found the house empty and immediately tried to file a missing person report. However, he was told he had to wait 48 hours before he could officially open a case. Desperate to find Lisa, Tim began searching for her on his bike, but sustained an injury and had to go to the hospital. He then called Jeanette and Lisa's mother, Pat, but neither had heard from her, and the family began to fear the worst. Pat had scheduled a phone call with Lisa later that day, but the call never came, deepening their concern. When the missing person report was finally filed, investigators raided properties associated with the biker gang but found nothing of significance. Lisa's parents conducted their search in the area where she was last seen, using metal detectors in hopes of finding something, a piece of clothing or jewelry, that might lead them to her. Unfortunately, their efforts were in vain. Members of the biker club were questioned, and investigators reported receiving credible information, but they have not disclosed what it was. To this day, no further traces of Lisa have been found, and her disappearance remains a mystery. A $1 million reward has been offered for any information leading to a resolution in the case. At the time of her disappearance, Lisa Govan had brown hair and blue eyes, stood about 5 feet 1 inch tall, and had a slim build. She was last seen wearing a black shirt, a black long-sleeve top, sandals, and a leather choker with a dolphin pin. If you or anyone you know has information about Lisa's case, you are urged to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-333-000 or reach out to the Kalgoorlie Detective's Office at 08-9021-9703. The mystery surrounding Peter Bergman is one of the most perplexing, unsolved cases to this day. This tall man, who spoke with a German or Austrian accent, appeared to come out of nowhere, leaving behind no clues about his true identity. Known only by the name he gave, Peter Bergman, he first appeared at the Derry bus station on June 12, 2009. He specifically asked for a ticket to Sligo, a quiet town on Ireland's west coast, famous for its beaches and its connection to the poet W.B. Yeats. Unlike other seaside towns in Ireland, Sligo isn't a popular tourist destination, but Peter seemed to know exactly where he wanted to go. Later that afternoon, Peter was seen on CCTV at the Sligo bus station. He approached a taxi rank and asked to be taken to a cheap place to stay. Without a particular hotel in mind, he ended up at the Sligo City Hotel, where he checked in for 3 nights, giving the name Peter Bergman and an address in Vienna. The hotel staff did not ask for identification. During his stay, Peter appeared to keep to himself, coming and going frequently. But what seemed ordinary at first glance took on a more mysterious tone when reviewed later. Over 3 days, Peter left the hotel 13 times, each time carrying a purple plastic bag filled with unknown items. However, when he returned, the bag was empty. CCTV footage captured his movements in and out of the hotel, but oddly, no public cameras in town recorded where he went or what he did with the items he was carrying. Adding to the enigma, Peter visited a post office on his second day in Sligo and purchased 82-cent stamps and airmail stickers, enough to send several letters abroad. Yet, there is no evidence that he ever mailed anything, and if he did, it wasn't captured on CCTV. On June 14th, Peter asked a taxi driver to take him to Strand Hill, a beach popular with surfers. The driver suggested Ross's Point instead, noting that Strand Hill wasn't ideal for swimming. Peter agreed, and they drove to Ross's Point, but once there, Peter simply looked at the beach and asked to be taken back to the bus station. The following day, June 15th, marked the last day of Peter Bergman's life, a day as mysterious as everything that had come before. He requested a late checkout and left the hotel around 1 p.m., carrying 3 bags. By the time he arrived at the bus station, one of the bags was missing, and it was never found. At 2:40 p.m., Peter boarded a bus to Ross's Point. It was a relatively warm day, and the beach was busy, making Peter stand out in his unusual attire: a long-sleeved blue shirt, a black sleeveless jumper, dark pants, and a black leather jacket. He didn't seem dressed for a day at the beach, yet he spent hours there, walking up and down the sand. At one point, he removed his shoes and socks and rolled up his pants. Peter remained at the beach well into the evening, long after most visitors had left. He was last seen at 11:50 p.m. by a woman who noticed him walking along the water's edge with his purple plastic bag. The next morning, 2 men training for a triathlon discovered Peter's body on the beach. His clothing was bizarrely arranged. He was wearing purple-striped swimming trunks with his underwear over them and a navy t-shirt tucked in. Most of the clothes he had worn the previous day were found neatly folded on the rocks nearby, but his shirt was missing. All the labels on his clothing had been carefully removed, and no identification was found on him. The few belongings Peter had with him traced back to continental Europe, suggesting he was from either Germany or Austria. However, the address he had given the hotel was false, and it's believed his name was too. There was no record of anyone named Peter Bergman entering Ireland or the UK, and how he arrived in Derry remains unknown. Speculation about Peter Bergman's true identity has ranged from theories that he was a spy to the idea that he was an ordinary man who chose Sligo as the place to end his life for reasons we may never understand. Despite having his DNA on file, no matches have been found. The mystery of Peter Bergman may only be solved if a family member comes forward to identify him. Until then, this strange case remains unresolved. Tabitha Queen, a 29-year-old woman from Bastrop, Louisiana, vanished under mysterious circumstances on May 9, 2021. That day was Mother's Day, and Tabitha had spoken to her mother, Mary, on the phone. However, their conversation ended abruptly. According to Mary, she heard her daughter speaking to someone else in the car. When she inquired who it was, Tabitha simply said she needed to go and quickly hung up the phone. Concerned, Mary tried calling back immediately, but Tabitha's phone was already turned off, and her calls went straight to voicemail. Worried about Tabitha's sudden silence, Mary and other family members repeatedly tried to reach her, but with no success. Alarmed, they decided to visit her home to check on her. When they arrived, they found no trace of Tabitha, but her 3 children were there alone. The children told the family that their mother had gone to the grocery store but had not returned. This discovery heightened the family's concern, as it was completely out of character for Tabitha to leave her children unattended for any length of time. Unable to find any more clues about her whereabouts, Tabitha's family reported her missing on May 11th. Investigators soon reviewed surveillance footage from the grocery store where Tabitha was last seen. The footage confirmed that she had entered the store on May 9th, purchased a few items, and left carrying bags as she walked through the automated doors. However, disturbing details emerged from Tabitha's 11-year-old daughter during the investigation. The child revealed to police that her mother had recently been arguing with a man who had been using Tabitha's car. The daughter recounted that this man, along with a friend, had brought the car back to Tabitha's home. When Tabitha inspected the vehicle, she noticed a strange smell coming from it. She questioned the man about the odor, but he refused to answer. Upon further inspection, she found what appeared to be a biological substance in the area where the spare tire was kept. Disturbed by this discovery, Tabitha told the man that he could no longer use her car, which enraged him. He then threatened to return to the house and harm Tabitha. Later that same day, a van reportedly arrived at Tabitha's home, and an attempt was made to abduct her. It is unclear whether this attempt was successful, but her family strongly believes that Tabitha fell victim to foul play. They have since requested the FBI's involvement in the investigation, but local police have stated that they will not seek federal assistance, assuring the family that they are handling the case. Tabitha's car was eventually found parked on West Pine Street. Investigators noted that the area had CCTV cameras, and when they reviewed the footage, they were stunned to discover that Tabitha was not the one who left the car there. Instead, an unidentified man was seen driving the vehicle. In the video, the car is driven between 2 buildings, where it comes to a stop. The driver remains inside for a while before eventually getting out and walking away, disappearing from the camera's view. Another camera across the road captured the car's arrival more clearly, but despite this, investigators were still unable to identify the man behind the wheel. The footage was released to the public, with investigators urging anyone who recognized the man to come forward. Unfortunately, no one has come forward with any information, leaving the case at a standstill. The car was thoroughly searched by investigators, and swabs were taken to be analyzed at a crime lab. However, the results are still pending, leaving the family anxiously waiting for any potential clues that might help identify Tabitha's abductors. The area around where the car was found was also searched, but no additional evidence was discovered, as the man in the footage did not linger around before leaving. Tabitha's family has been informed that the police have a person of interest in the case, though no arrests have been made. The identity of this person and their connection to Tabitha's disappearance remain unclear. If you have any information regarding Tabitha Queen's case, please contact the Bastrop Police Department at 318-281-1322. Earlier this year, what started as a solo vacation for 53-year-old Gary Shearer quickly turned into a tragedy when he disappeared without a trace. Gary, originally from Scotland, had decided to take a solo trip to the Spanish islands to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. He booked a room in Porta del Carmen, one of the most popular towns in Lanzarote, planning to stay for a week. On March 16th, Gary arrived at his hotel and checked in without any issues. That evening, he ventured out to Bar 67, a well-known Irish pub just a short 10-minute walk from his hotel. He left most of his belongings, including his ID, medication, and the majority of his money, back in his room, carrying only around 70 euros with him. Details about what happened that night remain scarce. According to the authorities, Gary was seen at the bar, socializing and partying with a group of 6 people. It's unclear whether he knew these individuals beforehand or met them at the bar that night. Around 12:30 a.m. the following morning, Gary was spotted outside the bar. A fellow tourist later reported seeing Gary in a very intoxicated state and even tried to help him into a taxi to return to his hotel. However, the taxi driver refused to take Gary due to his condition, and Gary wandered off on his own. This was the last time he was seen. The next day, the concerned tourist returned to Gary's hotel to check on him, only to learn that he hadn't made it back the previous night. It wasn't until Gary failed to check in for his flight back to Scotland at the end of the week that anyone realized he was missing. His family, alarmed by his absence, contacted the police in Scotland, who then coordinated with local authorities in Lanzarote to investigate his disappearance. Gary's family traveled to Lanzarote to aid in the search, but despite their efforts, no trace of him has been found. Early in the investigation, CCTV footage surfaced, showing Gary near the bar between 12:30 a.m. and 1:30 a.m. He was seen lying unconscious in the doorway of a nearby store. Unfortunately, by the time anyone realized Gary was missing, he was no longer there. Several people had passed by him as he lay on the street, but no one stopped to check on him. This CCTV footage raised many questions for those following the case, as it was not initially clear how Gary had left that spot. Due to the Spanish courts handling the investigation, information was limited, which is standard in missing person cases. It was eventually revealed that Gary had regained consciousness and walked away from the area. Further CCTV footage was discovered, and some images were released to the public. In this footage, Gary was seen entering a Spar supermarket. The exact location of the store is unclear, but it was likely close to where he was last seen, suggesting that he may have walked past his hotel. According to his family, he was last seen walking in the direction of San Antonio, which would have been back toward an area he had visited earlier. What makes this footage particularly mysterious is that Gary is not alone. He was seen walking with an unidentified man, whom the police are eager to interview. This individual, described as being between 60 and 70 years old, well-built, with gray hair, was wearing a light brown jacket, a white shirt, and dark pants. While it's possible this man had no involvement in Gary's disappearance, he remains the last person known to have seen Gary before he vanished. Gary's situation is especially concerning because he suffers from epilepsy and diabetes, conditions that require regular medication. Without his medication, his chances of survival are greatly reduced, leaving his family in a state of extreme worry. Anyone with information about Gary Shearer's disappearance is urged to contact the local police or call 07722 9497 or 0703052 436618. The final days of Jack Wheeler's life are shrouded in mystery and confusion, even though CCTV footage captured much of his last movements. Unfortunately, this footage has done little to clarify what truly happened to him. Jack Wheeler, a 66-year-old Vietnam War veteran and former presidential aide, led an accomplished life. He worked on numerous projects to support other veterans and even served as CEO of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. After his time as a presidential aide for Ronald Reagan and both Bush presidents, Jack worked as a consultant for a defense contractor specializing in cybersecurity. This role, which required a high-level security clearance, led some to suspect it might be connected to the events that unfolded next. On Christmas Eve 2010, Jack traveled from Washington, D.C., where he worked, to New York, where his family lived. He spent Christmas Day with his wife, Catherine, and their children, and everything appeared normal. However, the next day, Jack informed his wife that he needed to return to Washington early. He said it was important, but did not provide any details, leading to an argument that continued through text messages and emails after he left New York. On December 28th, Jack returned to Washington and worked in his office for a few hours before heading to Newcastle, Delaware, where the family owned a house near Battery Park, a place Jack cherished due to its historical significance. However, after arriving in Delaware, Jack's behavior became increasingly erratic. The next morning, he stopped using his cell phone at 9:30 a.m. and contacted his workplace to report a break-in at his home. He claimed that important items, including his briefcase, key fob, and cell phone, had been stolen. It's unclear what sensitive information, if any, the briefcase contained, but his security credentials were among the stolen items. Jack also emailed his therapist, expressing feelings of confusion and distress following the argument with his wife. At 6 p.m. that evening, CCTV footage captured Jack at a pharmacy, where he asked a friend who worked there for a ride to nearby Wilmington. Although his friend offered to call him a taxi, Jack declined. Another couple then offered him a ride. At this point, Jack's friend noticed that he appeared upset, but wasn't acting particularly unusual. However, just over 40 minutes later, when Jack was next seen on camera, his condition had worsened dramatically. The footage, taken in a Wilmington parking garage, showed him disoriented, limping, and holding one shoe in his hand. He was without his tie and wearing only his suit jacket, despite the cold weather. Jack appeared to be hiding, peeking around corners and searching through doors. He told staff that he was looking for his car, which was parked 3 blocks away, and that he had lost his briefcase containing his parking ticket. While it wasn't unusual for Jack to misplace his car, the circumstances surrounding this incident were troubling. The following day, he was captured on CCTV several more times in Wilmington, looking increasingly disheveled. Many mistook him for a homeless person. At one point, Jack asked to see a managing partner at a law firm but left before he could be seen. He also requested a ride to Philadelphia. His last known sighting was at approximately 8:40 p.m. He was now wearing a dark blue hooded sweatshirt with the hood pulled over his face as he walked east towards Rodney Square, where he vanished. Jack was next seen when his body fell out of a garbage truck at a landfill on New Year's Eve. Police determined that he had been placed in a commercial dumpster in Newark, which was picked up around 4:30 a.m. that morning. Jack had sustained blunt force injuries, leading investigators to believe that his death was not accidental. Someone had deliberately taken his life. In the days leading up to his death, it appeared that Jack was trying to avoid something or someone and was attempting to leave Delaware. However, Jack had bipolar disorder, and it's possible he was experiencing an episode or another mental health issue that made him paranoid. Losing his phone likely exacerbated his distress, though it may not have been stolen. Jack's phone was eventually found at a house under construction across from his home in Battery Park. Jack had been campaigning to halt the construction, believing it to be sacrilegious due to the site's historical significance. On the night of December 27th, smoke devices were set off at the construction site, causing minimal damage. While there's no definitive evidence that Jack was responsible, his phone's location led investigators to suspect he may have been involved. Realizing he had left his phone at the scene could have triggered the strange behavior observed in the following days. However, this still doesn't explain why Jack was attacked. Some believe he sustained his injuries simply by falling from the dumpster, while others suspect the injuries were inflicted deliberately. Whether this was a crime of opportunity or someone deliberately targeted Jack remains a mystery. Anyone with information on this case is urged to contact Delaware Crime Stoppers at 1-800-847-3333.